Welcome to Craft a Brew. Let's make some hard cider. Today we're going to be making hard apple cider with Craft a Brew's home hard cider kit. It's important to get really good quality apple juice, and particularly apple juice that doesn't have any preservatives in it. So what you're looking for is a bottle that says 100% juice and doesn't list any preservatives in the ingredients list. I like to get the cloudier apple juice, the stuff that's got a lot of pulp mixed into it. I find that gives a more well-rounded flavor to the finished cider. However, you can use crystal clear off-the-shelf grocery store apple juice for this too, and you're still going to come out with something that tastes super great and is nice and sparkling and refreshing. But as the old adage says, you get out what you put in, so the better quality your ingredients going in, the better quality cider you're going to get on the other end. So let's take a look at what comes inside the Craft a Brew home cider making kit. Perhaps most importantly, the instruction booklet. We've got a bag in here that has got an airlock, a rubber stopper, a tube clamp, and the cap for the end of a siphon racking cane. And here's that racking cane. More on that in a bit. Here is our siphon tubing that goes with the racking cane. We've got a funnel that'll help us get our apple juice into our jug. And then we've got this little baggie. In here, we've got packets of sanitizing solution. And we've got packets of yeast. The yeast is the microbe that we're going to add to our apple juice that will convert the sugars into alcohol. More on that in a bit. Finally, we've got our jug, or carboy. This is what we'll be fermenting in, and as you can see, there's a 1 gallon mark near the neck of the carboy. That is important because we're making 1 gallon of cider, so that gives us a visual guide at our fill level in this jug. The first thing we're going to need to do when making our hard cider is to make sure that all of our gear and equipment is sanitized, because the only microbes we want touching our apple juice are the ones that we add to it in the form of that yeast. So we want to make sure that there's very little chance of other microbes like bacteria or wild yeasts getting in there. So we're going to mix up some sanitizer. Here I've got a bucket with 1 gallon of water in it. We're going to add half of a sanitizer packet to this bucket and then get all of our gear and equipment sanitized. So we'll start by laying out some clean, fresh paper towels, and then again, half of our sanitizer packet is going to go in to this gallon of water. And reserve the other half of that sanitizer packet for later. It's easy enough to use your racking cane to mix in that sanitizer, and you just want to stir it until you don't feel those granules in the bottom of your bucket anymore. And then we're just going to make sure that everything is sanitized, so we're going to give it a nice 1 to 2 minute soak in the sanitizer. This is a no rinse solution, so our stuff can just go right out onto that clean paper towel. Okay, everything's sanitized, including our carboy. So now it's time to pop in our funnel, get some apple juice in there, and get started fermenting. Sometimes I like to elevate the funnel. That alleviates some of the vacuum pressure as you're pouring in and helps you pour your juice in quicker than if you just leave the funnel flush with the mouth of the carboy like that. We filled this up to the 1 gallon mark on the side of the jug. That's going to give us a little extra headspace in there because this will foam and expand during fermentation, and we want to give it a little bit of room to do that so it doesn't push up and out of our airlock. And now we're going to add our yeast. Yeast is technically a fungus. It's a little tiny microbe, and as part of its life cycle process, it likes to eat sugar, and the output of that is both alcohol and carbon dioxide. So we are putting this in here so we can convert the sugars in the apple juice into alcohol, and the carbon dioxide is going to come up and out of our airlock, released out just into the environment of the room that you're fermenting in. One benefit of it creating carbon dioxide as a byproduct is that later on in this process, we're going to add a little bit more sugar when we bottle, and that will carbonate the cider in the bottle. But that is a step for another day. So we're going to pitch our yeast in dry. We're just going to open the top of this, put it in here, and then we're going to get it aerated because yeast also needs oxygen for its synthesis process. So just rip the top off. Make sure you get as much out of that packet as you can. And then we're going to add some oxygen by putting our sanitized stopper in the mouth of our jug, placing a thumb over that, and giving it some good shakes. That's a nice workout, a little bit over a minute of shaking there. But now we've got plenty of oxygen mixed into that apple juice, so the yeast should have everything that it needs to get fermentation kicked off. So all we have to do now is put in our airlock. We're just gonna pop the cap off of that, stick that in to our rubber stopper, make sure everything is seated in there really well, and then we're just gonna add water up to that fill line. The airlock is a one-way water valve. During fermentation, gases are going to be created, primarily carbon dioxide. That's going to come up and out of the jug. Using the airlock, those gases will bubble up through the water, and the water will act as a valve keeping bad buggies out, primarily things like fruit flies. So using the airlock helps protect our cider from infection, while also allowing those gases to escape so the pressure doesn't build up inside the jug. So now that this is fermenting, we're going to give it about 10 days in here to ferment, and then we'll come back and check on it. So put it away in a cool, dark place and set a calendar reminder to check on it in 10 days. It's been a week and a half. Our cider has dropped nice and clear after fermentation finished, and so now it's time to get it primed and bottled. We're going to mix up some priming sugar here. This is 1.5 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of table sugar. That's just sucrose, just regular old granulated table sugar. This requires the use of a vessel that is more than 1 gallon, so here we're using a 7-quart Dutch oven. We're going to be mixing the water and the sugar together, bring it to a boil for about 5 minutes, then allowing it to cool completely. Then we'll transfer our cider onto that priming sugar, make sure it's mixed throughout, and then we're ready to put our cider into bottles and carbonate it. So let's start by getting our water in. This is again 1.5 cups of water, and this is 2 tablespoons of sugar. We're going to put that on a medium-high heat, stir it until combined, boil for 5 minutes, and then we'll return after it has come completely down to room temperature. Our priming sugar is sufficiently cooled, so it's time to transfer our cider on top of our priming sugar. But before we do that, we need to get all of our gear and equipment sanitized. So we're going to use the half of that sanitizer packet that we reserved. It's going to go into this gallon of water. We'll get everything sanitized and then we'll get started. With everything sanitized, now it's time to get our cider into our priming sugar. Now remember, this priming sugar is the sugar that's going to give us carbonation in these bottles. So the remaining yeast that are still in suspension, even though this is a clear liquid, they're going to be able to consume the sugar inside the bottle. And since these bottles are going to be sealed, it's going to build up that pressure. The carbon dioxide will move into solution in the cider, and then when you crack one open, it will be nice and carbonated. So we're going to siphon our cider into here, and then we're gonna move this up top, and we'll siphon it into the bottles. To get our siphon going, we're gonna use some sterile water. This is water that has been boiled and cooled. We're going to put our sanitized tube into this water, fill it completely, and the water inside the tube will pull a vacuum that brings our cider down and into this Dutch oven. Check it out. Undo our sanitized tube. We're gonna put a hose clamp on one end, and we're gonna fill it up. It's helpful to bring both sides up even, and that way you can see the liquid level in there. And once that's basically full, we will attach our rack and cane to the side that doesn't have the hose clamp on it. So our open side here. Make sure that our hose is clamped off. And then we'll gently insert our rack and cane into our jug of cider, making sure not to push it down into that layer of lees at the bottom. We're gonna open our hose clamp, and as soon as the cider starts flowing, we'll move it over and rack it into this Dutch oven with our priming sugar. This takes a little finesse, but you can do it. There we go. And you just want to make sure that you rack directly into the bottom of this vessel, so that way you minimize oxygen getting into the cider. The reason we have this up so high is because we're using gravity to help us do this siphoning process. And so making sure that this is significantly higher than the vessel you're racking to ensures that you're going to get a nice good flow through your siphon. As you can see here, we're draining this thing pretty fast. As we get close to the end, we're just going to tip that carboy back and slowly move our racking cane down so we can try and get as much of the cider off the lees as possible. As soon as you start to see it get close to pulling some of that lees up, just remove the racking cane straight up and out. Just like that. Okay, we're gonna repeat that process and siphon this into bottles. We're gonna fill the bottles up to about where the neck meets the shoulder of the bottle, and that'll give plenty of headspace for that to expand slightly as the carbon dioxide starts to build up in the bottle. We're gonna give this just a quick stir with our racking cane to make sure that everything is mixed throughout. We wanna make sure that every bottle gets the same amount of priming sugar. It's just a very gentle stir. We've got our tubing full of water here, so we'll get that connected to our racking cane. We'll let out the flow of water and then stop it with our hose clamp as soon as the cider starts flowing. And then we just fill our bottles up. And you're watching again for it to reach about mid-neck, and then when you pull that tube out, it will settle in right around the shoulder. Then since these are swing top bottles, we can easily just put the flip top up and seal them up. Now we'll put these away for 10 days, allow them to carbonate up, and then we'll move them into the refrigerator for safekeeping. And just 10 short days later, we have cider. I went ahead and popped this one in the fridge a few hours ago, so it's nice and cool and ready to pour. Sparkling, effervescent, and ready to drink. It's crisp, dry, very petulant, lots of sparkles and bubble in there, and has a really nice undercurrent of apple. I could really see how this would work well with a fruit addition, maybe in secondary, or maybe some warm spices like cinnamon or nutmeg. Could be really nice. That's a pretty good cider for something that's made so quickly and easily. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that subscribe button down there so you don't miss any future Craft to Brew videos. And until next time, happy brewing.